Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We are on ayah number 243 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Let us continue bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. قال الله تعالى: ألم ترى إلى الذين خرجوا من ديارهم وهم ألوف حذر الموت فقال لهم الله موتوا ثم أحياهم إن الله لذو فضل على الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. Now he begins by saying, Alam tara, did you not see? Now of course the Prophet did not see, because this was an event that took place in the past. So we say here, the vision is not intended, but rather what is intended is the thought. So when he says, did you not see? It really means, did you not consider? So he's saying, did you not consider the matter of those who left their homes, وهم ألوف, from alf, in their thousands, حذر الموت, fearing or wary of death. Now most Mufassirin say that this refers to a people in a town called Dawardan in Iraq, a few miles away from the town called Wasit, also in Iraq. And there was a plague that broke out, and so these people in their thousands fled their town. And Allah said to them, Mutu, die. Thumma ahyahum, then He gave them life, to show them that you cannot flee from the qadr of Allah Jalla wa'ala. So Allah is simply making a point that the qadr overcomes all things, even the precautions that you may take. There is an alternative opinion on the matter, which is that these people are fleeing the town because they do not want to fight in a battle which they were called to fight, because they feared for their lives. And Allah gave them death to show them that even if you flee from a battle, it will not prolong your life. And these people, in the second opinion, are from the Banu Israel. The scholars who hold this opinion, they say that the next ayah speaks about fighting in the way of Allah, so the context follows on. And he says that Allah is most graceful to mankind. He bestows His grace upon them. All types of grace, whether it be for your physical life, as in food, drink, shelter, clothing, and so on, or for your salvation in the hereafter, giving you the message and messengers and showing you His signs so that you may be guided. All of this is from His grace. And yet He says that most of mankind are not thankful. Okay, so reflecting on this ayah, the main lesson to be taken is that even if you take your precautions, you cannot undo the qadr of Allah Jalla wa'ala. Now this does not mean we do not take our precautions, but it does mean to say that we do not rely on our precautions and the measures that we take. Rather, we rely upon Allah Jalla wa'ala solely. We find in this ayah another instance of people being brought back to life. And we said in Surah Al-Baqarah there are 5 instances of people being brought back to life after their death. And so if that's the case, then one can easily understand that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, everyone will be brought back to life. After all, it's happened before, so it will happen again. We find from this ayah that Allah is the owner of a mighty grace and is most graceful to mankind. So we find His magnanimous nature. We find most of mankind is an ingrate. And this is exactly what the word kafir means. It means an ingrate. And most of mankind are kuffar. And what a sorry state of affairs they are in. Which tells us that we need to get active and give da'wah. We find from this order, mutu, that Allah Jalla wa'ala can speak and give verbal commands. So if one says, but is it not the case that when Allah wants something, He says, kun, be, and it is? We say, yes, this is mujmal. It needs explanation. In and of itself, it is not clear-cut. So certainly Allah Jalla wa'ala gives the command, but the command is not necessarily the word be, as in kun. The command would be in context. So if He wants some people to die, He will say mutu, die. If He wants the rain to fall, He would give the command to the sky to give rain. So it would be something like amtir, give rain. When Allah created the pen, He told the pen to write. So this was a command, uktub, to write down. So the point is that Allah Jalla wa'ala does speak and He does give commands, but in context. It's not necessarily the case that he only ever says kun. We also take from this ayah the obligation upon us and upon everyone else to give thanks to Allah Jalla wa Ala in the manner in which He dictates. And this idea of giving gratitude is universally accepted as a great-making quality. And ingratitude is an evil quality, and that is universally accepted. Also, if we say that this ayah is about fighting, then you will notice that it has come after the ayat about marriage and divorce and iddah period. So marriages is what makes a community. However, that is not enough. The community must be protected, and the only way to protect it from enemies is not by diplomatic methods. You cannot reason with the enemy. It has to be via military intervention. So this is why the ayat of jihad fi sabilillah are so vital, just as vital as the ayat which talk about family matters. Also, if this ayah is about fighting, then it shows us that fleeing from a fight does not save your life. You're going to die when Allah wills you to die. And a good example given here is the statement of Khalid ibn al-Walid radiallahu anhu, who was well known for fighting fi sabilillah. On his deathbed, he is reported to have said the following: I have participated in so and so number of battles. There is not a part of my body but that it suffered a shot of an arrow or a stab of a spear or a strike of a sword. Yet here I am on my deathbed just as the camel dies. May the eyes of the cowards never taste sleep. End quote. So here we have a man who spent his life fighting and never died on the battlefield. Why is this? Because it's all to do with the qadr of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Ayah 244, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. The words in this ayah are fairly clear-cut. Fighting in the way of Allah is when you fight to make the word of Allah superior, that is, above the word of kufr, because there's only room for one ruler. Either this will be Islam or it will be kufr. So from this ayah we learn the obligation of fighting in the way of Allah. Now whether it's an obligation or a recommendation is a matter for the books of fiqh. We have discussed this in our presentations elsewhere. We may take from the words fi sabilillah that anyone who fights for nationalistic reasons or for personal reasons is not fighting a righteous war. Fighting in the way of Allah is an act of ibadah, and as with all acts of ibadat, your intention is of paramount importance. We also learn of the two names of Allah, the one who hears and the one who is knowledgeable. These names can be a threat, because if you do not do as Allah commands, then He knows what you're doing, He hears what you're doing, and will take it into account. And yet conversely, if you are obedient, again Allah hears what you do and He knows what you do and will reward you likewise. Ayah number 245. مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا فَيُضَاعِفَهُ لَهُ أَضْعَافًا كَثِيرًا وَاللَّهُ يَقْبِضُ وَيَبْسُطُ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. Question 4. مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي, who is the one? Now the ayah could have said مَنِ الَّذِي, but the dha is an ism ishara. It points to something. And ultimately the meaning and the translation does not change. The word qard is used, which means a loan. Qarada yaqridu means to nibble something. So it's like you nibble or take out a piece of your wealth and give it to the one who is in need. So a qard in this case is similar to charity, except the qard is something you take back, and a charity or sadaqah is something you do not take back. So giving Allah a loan simply means taking a portion of your wealth and spending it in avenues which please Allah Jalla wa Ala. So it could be giving to the poor, it could be giving money to promote the deen of Allah Jalla wa Ala in various ways. All avenues which please Allah Jalla wa Ala and are reward worthy. And your qard cannot be qard hasanan unless it is with halal wealth, because Allah is good and accepts only that which is good and halal. He says Allah yaqbid, which means to grasp or seize something, so it means He can decrease your wealth. وَيَبْسُطْ, which means to increase or make expansive. He can make your wealth expansive. But of course it does not have to be wealth. It can be all matters such as your knowledge and such as your lifespan. He could decrease it or increase it. And he says to him, you shall return. That's clear enough. It's talking about Yawm al-Qiyamah. Okay, so reflecting on this ayah, we find the obvious lesson of the recommendation of spending in the way of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Give in sadaqah. And this is seen as a loan to Allah because Allah will pay you back just as a normal loan. However, He will pay you back with interest because He says, فَيُضَاعِفَهُ لَهُ أَضْعَافٍ كَثِيرًا. So ضَاعَفَ يُضَاعِفُ means to multiply. So He will multiply it for you manyfold. And this ayah then is similar to ayah number 261 of Surah Al-Baqarah about the grain of corn and it grows 7 ears. The ulama say that the qard hasan is one which has certain attributes. Number one, ikhlas. You're doing it for Allah, you're not doing it to show off. So other people could say, oh, what a generous and magnanimous man this person is. Number two, it is from halal wealth. Number three, you're giving it happily. You're not giving it out of spite and begrudgingly. And you do not think this is some type of tax that you have to give. For example, calling a zakat a tax, which you give begrudgingly. No, you give it with an open chest, that you're happy to spend in the way of Allah. Number four, it needs to be in an avenue which pleases Allah. So to the masakeen, or to the mujahideen, or to publishing books of knowledge and so on. It cannot be in an avenue which displeases Allah, or perhaps just a neutral avenue. It needs to be something that pleases Allah positively. And number five, that when you give in charity, you do not remind people of the charity that you gave them, and you do not harm others to whom you have given charity, such that you are thinking, well, I have given him charity, I can abuse him, he has no right to fight back because he knows I'm his benefactor. So how dare he fight back? So that gives me the right to abuse him and to wield my authority over him. No, these things should not be done. Rather, you give in charity and you forget it. You move on. It's as if you never gave any charity. Ayah 264 speaks about this matter. We find from this ayah the grace of Allah in that He pays you back manifold. We learn from this ayah, importantly, that it is Allah alone who increases and decreases your wealth. So in this there is a hint that giving in charity does not decrease your wealth. In fact, the opposite is likely to be true. If you do not give in charity, that will decrease your wealth because it will deprive your wealth of blessing. And so you will find your money running out extremely quickly. Yet if you were to give charity, you would find your money staying with you for a long time. This is what barakah is all about. Goodness which stays with you. It comes from the word birka, which means a pond, which has much water, which stays put. It's not going anywhere. We find from this ayah that we are going to return to Allah. So this life is not just the only life, which is what most people believe. And also we may take, because we will return to Allah, we will have to give an account of what we are doing. So this section of the ayah forms as a targhib and tarhib, like we have mentioned many times before. Wallahu a'lam.